So apparently, I got some obligations that I owe for. And what would that be? Jobs. There was a group of up to, I believe, I think there was 100 young African American leaders in Chicago that came up with a plan where they said that what the community needed was jobs. And so apparently, in this little hostage taking scenario, I'm supposed to deliver on that. Here's the thing, I know what jobs you want. The problem is, you wanted to go with somebody in your community, and I was more than willing to work with them. But they set me up to aid and abet illegal activities. And all it would do, if I tried to give you a reference to get a job with them, would be to play into these completely unacceptable racist stereotypes that the only way for black people to succeed is to engage in some kind of criminal activity, up to and including cyber terrorism. I'm sorry, I've done everything I can, but no less than 3 times since I returned to Chicago, I have tried to engage in a professional training program that had to do with very important cybersecurity matters. First one was explicitly about a mobile app development class. The second one was about studying non destructive testing. And in the third one, I attempted to obtain a securities license. I got deferred and diverted to get on Medicare. They refused to do the most basic editing of simple grammar. And even when I offered to correct the grammar, having as I did experience as an editor, there wasn't money in the budget. Or they had somebody else that was supposed to do it, but that person wasn't available until the deadline had passed. And by the time the deadline passed, they had already set up a secret account on my identity and it defaulted because I never agreed to sign the fraudulent contract. I don't owe you anything less. You do not have to accept extortion from people that are going to try to program you to be stupid. It doesn't matter if they're black. It doesn't matter if they're a veteran. It doesn't matter. Now, on the other hand, especially if you're in Chicago, I found something, and it's startling. Apparently, in 2014, no, 2015, this is where it gets tricky. In 2015, the governor of Illinois signed an executive order regarding the budget crisis. You know, he does that thing in an executive order where he lists all the problems, invokes the order, gives the facts, and then he starts talking about how he intends to deal with it. I gotta be honest with you, I think it was an incredibly sensible plan of attack. See, he's somebody who had experience in private equity. I don't know a lot about private equity, but what I know is that all of those papers and all that paperwork that he's saying that people need to, proffer up, those are all benchmarks. And if you work with it, you can actually figure out a policy by which you can set benchmarks. And when you set those benchmarks and you meet them, you accrue credit. The only thing that makes it monetizable or non monetizable is having compatible currencies. If you've got somebody that's producing stuff that's trading at platinum and you try to trade it for tin, it may not translate. It may not actually work. But what some people like to do is this sort of leveraging, where they pair things that shouldn't be paired. And they know they shouldn't be paired, but they do it because they want to escape accountability. And I think that what Ronner was doing is he was calling the bluff. It would have been real simple if you had your paperwork together to get all of that paperwork together and then work with somebody to put that through a system, and then you start setting up those benchmarks and you start meeting those benchmarks. That's what he did. That's what he did. That's what the city. That's what Deloitte did for the city of Chicago with the police and the teachers union. By the way, did they do that with you, or did they try to tell you, you know what? Don't worry about the documents. Yeah, they're fraudulent. Don't worry about it. Even if somebody working for the fucking, I'm sorry. Even if somebody working for the insurance board tells you that, you know dang gone well they have all of their paperwork in order. So when they tell you don't worry about it, that means they're not worried about you. That's all it means. But here's the problem. He did that executive order. He signed it. And then for some reason, the Secretary of State stamped it for a year earlier. I'm trying to figure this out. Except that it happened during an election year. Did somebody in the state of Illinois Secretary of State's office record an executive order from the governor to be backdated a year earlier than it actually occurred in order to intentionally set up an act of securities fraud? Was it maybe aimed at, I don't know, leveraging something for the political campaign of somebody who was born in the state of Illinois? Did you get busted down for not voting for the person you were told to vote for in order to aid and abet a fraudulent security scheme? If you're on the streets right now, chances are that's exactly what they're trying to get you to do. I'm sorry. Do you deserve a job? I don't know. Do you want a job? I mean, do you want a job or do you want to be your own owner? Do you want to have your own body? Do you want to have your own people? Because I'm not fucking going to, I'm not setting up anything and I'm not hiring anybody for a wage.